Hi everybody. This is not quite a comparison, but there's just so rarely that I found a full deck with Southeast Asian theme or themes that I am compelled to make not quite a comparison, but you know, if there's only two of them, then it is a natural urge to see how they look like against each other or side by side. I was going to do all of the four decks that I have that is Southeast Asian themed. Two is Indonesian, one is sort of general Southeast Asia Tarot Rikit, Tarot Nusantara, and Javanese Folk Tales Tarot, both Indonesian or somewhat more Javanese than anything really. And this one here, Siamese Tarot or the Thai Tarot. So first of all, the Tarot Nusantara that we have here is the Truntum edition. Truntum refers to the patterns at the back, which is known in Yogyakarta as a batik pattern. This is Javanese batik. Java is in the island of Java. What you see here underneath the cards here is Javanese batik as well, but of the Peranakan variety. The Peranakan Chinese are people from China. In this particular instance, a lot of them came from China, came into the Dutch East Indies and assimilated their culture and gave birth to a hybrid culture called the Peranakan people, the Peranakan Chinese people of Southeast Asia. And as you can see, Javanese batiks like this, and the Peranakan Chinese batik looks very much like a lot of colors. Well, the Javanese batik's very, very brown because they're called sogan. They use the coloring that is made of the seed of or the fruit of soga tree. So Truntum, I believe the artist here is in Yogyakarta, called Sweta Kartika. I have done a walkthrough of the first edition of this deck, and I will link that either up here, the eye in the sky, if you click there, or down below. And so to manage the length of this video, I will have to refer you to that particular video for more detailed chats about Tarot Nusantara. So I think the Truntum edition is a third edition. There's still discussion about that, but compared to this, as you can see, it's a bit, the resolution might not be as high as it can be or as it could be. And also, the other thing I need to point out is that these people are so skinny because they are very much inspired by the wayang or the shadow puppets. Shadow puppets quite common in Asia with a lot of variety of aesthetic. The principle is the same. And these very skinny, very stylized humans here are recognized as being inspired by shadow puppets. And so traditionally in traditional text, for example, ancient text, you don't really see humans being depicted this way. This is a modern take on the traditional wayang. And also this has been said to have colors and cloth, like these cloth here, inspired by a variety of cultures across Indonesia, like that one there. So there's a whole Nusantara is what we refer to as the whole nation is Nusantara, this hodgepodge of a variety of hundreds and hundreds of cultures, of language, of religions, of customs and traditions. Here, on the other hand, is a depiction of people in a way that you often see traditional depiction of people in Thai documents often appear. And this is a more unified depiction of a culture. And so the aesthetic is more human representation in a sort of traditional way, although I'm no expert in Thai ancient documents and symbology or depictions, but I've recognized enough to see that a lot of the human illustration or characterization often look a certain way, and this is indeed a good representation of that. So those are the differences as far as I can make them. And so let's take a look at how each of the cards look. Magician. So the Nusantara is very Rider-Waite-Smith in positions, postures. It is literally, like as one person said, in Eclectic Tarot, it doesn't add anything new other than a skin. The Siamese Tarot took a slightly, like the Magician here, for example, is very different. Like here, in the Javanese tradition or Indonesian tradition, they would not have been on a table. Like it would have been more like this, cross-legged on the floor, matted floor. So, you know, that's what I meant. As you can see here, the priestess, very, very much exactly how Pixie's positioned the priestess. Here, on the other hand, it would have been more like how a Thai priestess would look like. She would be on the floor. The whole pillar and everything, and that's Western esoteric, was there for the purposes of illustrating Western esoteric principles. And so that's kept, even though like a lot of these so-called quote-unquote clones, a lot of the esoteric, what do you call it? Oh, the scenes are there, but the esoteric message is not quite there, which, you know, it doesn't bother me either way. It's just an observation. This is the Queen, or not the Queen, sorry, the Empress, Ratu. I saw Ratu and I wanted to say Queen. Again, a more, you know, posture by posture of Pixie's art here, while here the reinterpretation is a little bit more extensive, even though the Siamese Tarot here is still pretty much Rider-Waite-Smith, really, without any more spin or retake or reinterpretation beyond the aesthetic. So here the Raja or the Emperor here sits on a throne, and again, in the context of a lot of Indonesian cultures, I don't think an emperor would have sit on a throne like that. I could be wrong, but from what I remember, thrones in that part of the world in ancient times, they don't really look like that. Now here, you know, he's seated in a way that Thai people in ancient time would have. This triangle here, you can still buy them from a lot of Thai craft people. You could put your leg over it and it really relaxes your legs as you stretch your body, watching TV or reading or doing whatever. This is the Hierophant. So here it's been translated as the person who interpreted religion. And you have the two supplicant. There are lots of supplicants here. Yeah, so that's pretty. I suppose that's pretty. But here it's very Buddhist, as you can see. And this is not supposed to be Javanese, but looking at the wayang-like figures, I can't help but think of Javanese culture. And there is indeed a sense of the dominance of the Javanese people over the whole of the nation in terms of power imbalances. That was a conversation a few decades ago. I'm not quite sure if that conversation is still ongoing, but that's a Buddhist one, clearly. And the Javanese were Hindus at one point, and then they became Buddhist and then Muslim, and so that's true throughout the nation as well. Lovers. So again, you have the over figure very with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. More, while here you don't see that. You just have two people in the context of a Thai environment with lotuses instead. This is a war carriage or war chariot here, it says. explicitly says war. Here is just a chariot. Again, you have buffaloes here, which is more, it feels like it's more adapted to the Thai environment or the Thai culture and heritage, while here it is a simple, it is a stricter drawing of the Rider-Waite-Smith, just with a different outfit. Strength. Hermit. So again, you can see more on the left for Tarot Nusantara, more closer, a lot closer to the detailing of Pixie's art, which is Western, while the Siamese is a bit more localized. It's a higher degree of localization, or of this is the Wheel of Fortune. Again with the four corners there, while the four corners here doesn't have that four. The beast of the, what do you call it? The beast of the event, what, the beast of the gospel, or whatever it is. Human, angel, something and something, I can't remember. What is this? Not quite sure what that is, but it's definitely the posture of Wayang there. Justice. So again, more localization here, for lack of a better term. I hope you know what I mean. Here, like that looks like a huge Chris. Look at that. I think, unless, again, I'm no expert, from what I know, Chris is short, so it's about that, more like a blade than a sword. Here you can see the blade looks quite, take a look at that blade there. It's where the one side of the blade is sharp, the top isn't. What do you call them? And that's a localized blade as well, but the scale of it is huge. It's ginormous. It's probably 3 times as long as the Chris that I know. So again, look at death. Death is very much, in terms of their gestures and position, is very much Pixies on the left, Tarot Nusantara there, while on the right it takes a more liberal interpretation of the scene. This is Temperance. Temperance being interpreted by Tarot Nusantara as simplicity always bothers me, because it narrows down what temperance is. It took a very narrow interpretation of temperance. The Siamese Tarot has the benefit of sticking to the English titles. Both sadly glossy. This is the Devil. I hesitate to turn the light on because both are glossy and you'll be fighting with the reflection of the light. I'll just try to tweak the light here later on. That's the Tower. Again, that Tower is a bit more localized on the right there, on the Siamese Tarot. Star. Moon. Sun. You can see the closer adherence to Pixie's art on the Nusantara Tarot on the left compared to the more, a freer interpretation or reinterpretation, I suppose, on the right in the Siamese Tarot. I like them both simply because it tapped into a sense of heritage for me, a sense of back in time that I can call my own, or that is close in its cultural proximity to my own ancestors. So this is the Last Judgment on the left. And again, that sense of angel in a way that is depicted on the left is very much Pixies, really, more than it is Nusantara, while on the right you feel that that's more Siam or Siam or Thai than it is Pixie. But I like them both because, as I said, perhaps because my people, quote unquote, my people is really a lot of people, but in this case, my people in terms of heritage and ancestral, you know, a sense of tapping into an ancestral energy. The interface alone, the skin alone, the aesthetic alone is enough for me to feel closer to it. So you could see here it's closer to Pixie's art, while here it's different. And so it almost doesn't matter to me that a few other bits and bobs is less than perfect, or it's less adventurous, or it doesn't say as much as it could have in terms of now the Javanese folktales tarot speak a little bit more into that, because each of the major arcana has been reinterpreted in terms of a local folktale, so it really does go into another level. But this is so that's 3 of Pentacles. You can see how this is very close adherence to Pixie's art, and here is a bit different. I did say I was going to do majors only. This is close to 20 minutes now, so that's 5 of Pentacles. See how one is very, very Rider-Waite-Smith on the left, and this one here is basically someone who, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. They're carrying some stuff, and are they robbing him? But they look pretty friendly to each other, and he's just sort of giving them what he has on his back. So you see there's a I'm sorry, my hand's so dry. Maybe I'll quickly do this is 6 of Pentacles, giving alms. This is waiting. 7 of Pentacles on the Siamese Tarot is picking, while on the left they're waiting. The degree of interpretation, definitely there's a little bit more in the Siamese Tarot, even though it doesn't go into, you know, too much depth. You can see the 9 of coins there on the left, with the bird perched on her hand. And on the right, in Siamese Tarot, you see a lady in very comfortable surroundings. This is the one I've mentioned as being quite touching for me. On the left is the coins forming the spheres of the Tree of Life, with almost blow by blow re-rendering of Pixie scenes there. Here it's different, and it'll be quite interesting to see what the booklet says. 10 of coins. Pentacles. It says here, a wealth of other valuable things. Estate is owned by family, a person, or organization. The booklet's very almost like Lenormand-like, but it has interesting takes on things. A wealth of other valuable things. So indeed, a wealth of, and that really clearly depicts that for me, from my Asian eyes, from my Southeast Asian eyes, to have, my mom always say, the most valuable things in life is, this is very Confucius, Confucian, what is it called? Wu Hao. how I don't speak Chinese, so the tone that I use may be completely different, and therefore I may be saying something completely different. But it is filial children that is the ultimate success of parents, are children who are, filial piety. And that, I think, is what that's about. And so that, in that sense, there is a more, there's a more Southeast Asian take on the archetypal here. It's not so much, but the psychologist who is behind this particular deck does have a Jungian take on things, which is depicted in the color symbolism of the cloth. But other than that, so I'm going to speed through this because you kind of get the idea. I think it's quite consistent throughout the deck. Okay, so we're now, hold on a second. So I'll do another video just showing you all of the Southeast Asian themed decks that I've managed to gather so far. It's just that I have to dig out the other two, so. Both majors only, Tarot Rikit and Javanese Folk Tales Tarot, both are majors only. And both appears to me to be based on stories and folklore. I quite like the resting of the Four of Swords here because of that traditional bamboo drinking container. I think I forgot I knew them, and when I saw that, there's this distant memory that's been recalled. And I don't often have opportunities like that. And I like it. I like being being taken back into a time when I remember things. And these, you sit on the floor, you're drinking out of these bamboo drinking containers. And that's how you rest. That's how you lay down your swords. Lay down your swords. A place of stability, but also stagnation, because at some point you have to move on to whatever it is next. And here it's very, European, Western European medieval time that really doesn't apply to Indonesian culture like this. This is Kris. You can see the shape here. If you K-R-I-S or K-E-R-I-S, and they've been depicted as swords, which they're not the same thing really. Here, he is taking the swords of dead bodies here, taking advantage of a bad situation, right? Sort of. Here it's just really, I don't know, Five of Swords, usually pick your battle, and you will sort of win the battle, but you sort of lost the war, or reevaluation of perspective, or yeah. So that's interesting. Queen of Swords. The Three Graces is very much of a, yeah, I mean, I've said it already, it's a Western thing, really. Because, of course, that's the tradition that Pixie and Weight came from, which is fair enough. Oh, this is so touching. He is an adult. He is an adult with white hair. And so if you look at the 10 of Coins, where is he? Okay. This young one kowtowed to him, and then he in turn kowtowed to his parents. And so you see a young one here, grandchildren, and these two are looking quite mature, quite old, and old is not a dirty word, by the way. And he is in turn paying respect to his elders. And Six of Cups, it's this kind of returning to a time when when you're a child yourself, and it's like suddenly there is nothing that brings you back to your childhood as having to do the kind of things that you haven't done since you were 12. As soon as your parents come into the picture, suddenly you're a child again, That really hit home. That's the Six of Cups. Here it's the Rider-Waite-Smith's take on things, which, is alright, but it's just different, isn't it? 7. Eight. It is quite traditional. I mean, man, woman, 2 children, the whole white picket fence, a dog, and a mortgage type of deal. So, as I said, my expectation of this kind of deck is different, because representation for me perhaps is more important here in terms of, for the moment, cultural heritage, tradition, ancient timeline, that sort of thing, ancestral energies, etc., etc. knowing that we can't have it all in the world. This is why I have multiple decks. Having been able to see these things depicted in a deck is very moving for me, because I have never seen this kind of tradition, this kowtowing to your... It's just so much there. It's a whole video to tell you how it feels to see the scene, and I will probably do that in a separate video. So perhaps in a series of diversity towards diversity in tarot, which I really should do an introduction to. So anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.